So there's a game on the Nintendo Switch and 3DS called Blaster Master Zero, a retro remake of Blaster Master for the NES, a classic game from 1988. It's very true to the original game, having nearly identical level layouts in most of the levels, similar gameplay and similar enemies, and a near identical style of progression. But there are two things about it that are a bit strange to a lot of people. One was a total reworking of the main story, and the other is the addition of a new character named Eve. Well, Eve isn't actually new. She does in fact originate from the time of the original game, but not from the game itself. I'll explain. The US version of Blaster Master is about Jason Frudnick, a teenager who has a pet frog named Fred. One day, Fred hops out of his glass cage and leaves the house, only to discover a box labeled radioactive. He hops onto the box, becomes gigantic, and then jumps into an enormous hole nearby. Jason chases after him, leaping into the hole himself, and discovers, to his surprise, an armored vehicle with a turret, a sort of jumping tank, at the bottom named Sophia the Third, along with a suit to wear for protection. He puts on the suit, hops in the tank, and sets off to find his pet frog. If this all sounds a little silly, well, it wasn't the game's original plot. See, the Japanese version of Blaster Master, which is known as Meta Fight in Japan, had a totally different story, one that made more sense, but was also more generic. In the original Japanese version, the story is that Kane Gardner lives on a planet named Sophia the Third. The planet is under attack, and he gets into a vehicle named the Metal Attacker, built by a woman named Dr. Jennifer Cornett. With Blaster Master Zero, the original stories for both games are sort of combined into one, but with major changes. The story is now told with narration you can read, but I'll recap it. Basically, the story is set on a future Earth after a massive ice age caused by environmental destruction drove all humans underground. It wiped out much of the native life forms on the surface, while humans built new environments to live in underground. Humans later returned to the surface as they figured out a way to bring the Earth back to a livable condition. Jason Frudnick, here, is a robotics expert who one day discovers a frog. Having never seen a frog before, and with all records of frogs having apparently gone missing as he's unable to find any information on it, he adopts it and names it Fred. But one day, Fred escapes and enters some sort of portal in the ground. Jason jumps in after him, and finds himself transported underground where he finds a tank and a suit to wear. Okay, that was a little weird, but it makes more sense in the story of the original US version. At least, it attempts to explain more things. Even the weird details given there are later explained as the story is more fleshed out. Over the course of the game, you soon meet a woman named Eve who becomes your companion riding in the tank with you, and even has a handful of conversations with you if you use the transmission feature on the pause screen. Many of the conversations add to the story, and I found them enjoyable to read. Eve has an interesting backstory that explains many of the other events in the game, including the presence of Fred, the tank Sophia the Third itself, and a lot of what's going on for that matter. But the big question that many players have been wondering: where did the character of Eve come from, if she wasn't in the original NES game's American or Japanese versions? The answer is very weird. She came from a children's novel. No, I'm not kidding. In the US, there is a book series titled Worlds of Power, which is based on popular NES games. Games like Wizards and Warriors, Castlevania II Simon's Quests, and Blaster Master. In fact, those were the 3 books I owned as a kid. They even have a book based on, of all things, the original Metal Gear and Ninja Gaiden. I'm not kidding. Anyway, the Worlds of Power books would follow the basic plot of whatever game they were based on, but since the games barely even had a plot to speak of, the authors would almost always add things. Some of the books, like Wizards and Warriors and Castlevania II, would take a modern-day kid and transplant that kid into the world of the original game. Wizards and Warriors sent a modern kid on a knightly quest as a squire, while Castlevania II acknowledged at first Castlevania as being a video game that existed in the kid's world, before sending him into the sequel. Adding new characters was often a way to make sure that the main character had someone to talk to and interact with, so there could be some character interplay. The Blaster Master novel was for the most part a straight retelling of the game itself, based on the US version. It takes the gameplay concepts extremely literally, giving Sophia the Third its own power meter, and a list of weapons and abilities with labels such as Gun, Crusher, Hyper, Key, Wall Climber, and so on, the exact names they have in the game. Even the vehicle's ability to jump is labeled Emergency Jump, and if that's not enough, power-ups that refill life are treated in the book as literal glowing orbs that are driven through. Words such as underboss and level are used in the dialogue. Boss fights start out with the clang, clang, clang sound from the game, followed by a flash of light, similar to how they start in the actual game itself. It's a little absurd how much the book attempts to take the game literally. book's plot starts out the same as the game. Jason Frederick is a teenager with a pet frog named Fred who jumps out of his cage, reaches radiation, becomes gigantic, and falls down a hole. You know the drill. Jason chases after his frog, falls down the hole, and discovers the vehicle Sophia III and its human-looking driver, Eve, who greets him with suspicion, pointing a gun at him. Wait a minute, who is this Eve character? In the game, Jason discovered the vehicle by itself, abandoned but usable. Here it already has a driver. True to the Worlds of Power series, the Blaster Master novelization adds new characters who did not appear in the game. One is a boy named Alex, who shows up later in the story. He's one of Jason's high school classmates and is also looking for his own pet. The other is his mysterious young lady named Eve. Eve speaks imperfect English, and quickly introduces herself as being from another planet. She gives her real name as something unpronounceable, invites Jason into the vehicle, gives him a suit and helmet to wear, and quickly takes off down the tunnel, recreating the first scene in the game. Shortly afterward, Eve tells Jason that her planet was attacked by a creature named the Plutonium Boss and his army of mutants, who completely destroyed the planet and have since headed to Earth. Eve is the only survivor. This sounds a little familiar. Is Eve meant to be the same character as Dr. Jennifer Cornett from the original Japanese version of Blaster Master, the character who built the vehicle? In other words, did the developers add in the character to Blaster Master Zero, while simply giving the character the name Eve for the US version in order to make a tie-in to the Blaster Master novelization? Or is she a reimagining of Eve from the Blaster Master book, who survived a massive attack on her home planet and went to Earth to prevent the attack from spreading there? In Blaster Master Zero, Eve explains that she was a survivor of a major attack on her home planet, and a group of people there built Sophia III to be used as a powerful weapon against the mutants. She arrived at Earth with the intent of destroying the mutants there and preventing them from invading yet another planet. Sounds a lot like the book. The good ending provides us more detail about exactly who Eve is. In the good ending, it is revealed that Eve is apparently the daughter of two people named Kane Gardner and Jennifer Gardner. Those names are significant for a reason. In the original Japanese version of the old game, Jason Frudnick was actually named Kane Gardner. Jennifer Cornett was the name of the inventor of the tank, originally named the Metal Attacker. With the new last name Gardner, it's implied that she married Kane. In other words, Eve in Blaster Master Zero is the daughter of the protagonist of both the original game's Japanese version and the original inventor of the tank. The new story of Blaster Master Zero attempts to do many things, and tries to unify the original story of both the Japanese and US versions of the original NES game, in addition to the American children's novel based on the game, while being rewritten to make a lot more sense. And it is, in a way, a distant sequel, featuring the daughter of the Japanese original as protagonists, while also giving her the name of a character who was introduced in the American book that's based on the US version of the game. It's strange, but if you know the history of Blaster Master, it all makes sense. And to complete the connection to the original game, Blaster Master Zero's good ending finishes off with the scene of Jason, Eve, and Fred all sitting together on the new tank, Sophia Zero. It's a long story, but they had to replace Sophia III, recalling the ending to the original game. It's a neat throwback to the original game, while also making more sense than the original NES version's ending. In fact, it's not the only attempt to recall the original game, both expanding upon the original story and also making more sense in the process. Now, I've been talking about the story making more sense overall, but I haven't totally explained what that meant. Well, Blaster Master Zero's story was written to explain a lot of things that were expected to be taken for granted in the original game, and which made even less sense in the US version. For example, in the original game, different environments are visited, such as a forest area, volcano-like area, ruined city, industrial zone, and more. Since the original Japanese version of the game explicitly took place on another planet, this all made sense. Since the US version claimed to take place underground, none of this made sense. Unless you're willing to suspend disbelief and accept that a massive race of intelligent creatures underground build all these things, which is what I assumed when I was a kid. Blaster Master Zero's story, however, says that during a long human-induced ice age, humans lived underground and basically terraformed the underground to make it more like the surface and more hospitable. Thus, these are locations you're visiting, places once built by humans but abandoned by them. It's a sci-fi explanation that explains it pretty well. Another major change was Fred the Frog. In the original game's Japanese version, he didn't exist, period. In the US version, he's Jason's whole reason for being there. Jason chased after his pet frog and ended up saving the world from underground mutants he initially had no idea existed. Here? You won't believe this, but Fred the Frog? He is a robot drone sent from Eve's planet to search the universe for the mutant army while blending in with local wildlife. He creates portals that lead to the mutants and or the tank, Sophia the Third. Jason following him into one of these portals is what led him to the tank and on his mission. So yeah, it all makes sense in a sci-fi sort of way. And it does an excellent job of unifying the alien planet theme of the Japanese original version Blaster Master with the whole boy out to rescue his pet frog theme of the American version, merging both plots together with lots of new details. Making Eve the daughter of Kane Gardner and Jennifer Cornett of the original Japanese version Blaster Master means that this takes place in the same universe, apparently. It also canonically makes this game not only a remake, but a sequel. Well, that concludes my story analysis of Blaster Master Zero. I hope you liked it, and if you have any thoughts on the original game or this retro remake, put them in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and if you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and maybe check out my other videos. See ya!